Imagine this. You've just lost your husband to cancer. And months later, your own daughter's phone rings. The photo on the screen. It's him. But it's not a memory. It's a text message proving he not only cheated on you but orchestrated a financial plot with your daughter. For years. This is the story of Eleanor Vance. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply bought a black leather album and began building the Book of Truth that would destroy both their lives. Welcome to Quick Revenge Stories. Hit play and discover the power of silent vengeance. The hollow sound of the cell phone vibrating on the kitchen marble was what called her back to reality, a reality that would shatter in an instant. Eleanor, 62, was boiling water for her evening tea, an immutable routine since Ricardo had passed away nearly a year ago. He was gone, but the smell of sandalwood incense she detested still seemed impregnated in the walls of the house. Her daughter Claire's phone had been left behind after a hurried visit. Eleanor hesitated for a moment to look, respecting the privacy Ricardo always insisted on maintaining, an irony she would only later understand. But the ringing was insistent, and the screen lit up with a terrifying familiarity. The profile picture was him. Ricardo. Not the pale, wasted Ricardo from the last days of the hospital, but Ricardo in his prime, a smile that broke across his face, wearing a blue shirt she swore she had never seen, and behind him, the rustic backdrop of a wooden cabin, surrounded by pines that were not from that region. The message, from a sender saved only as J, was simple, yet loaded with dynamite. Today was perfect. I still can't believe you let me go. I love you, J. For Eleanor, the time for tears had passed. She had cried Ricardo dry, transforming grief into an armor of stoicism. But that note, that smile in an unfamiliar blue shirt, was more than betrayal. It was the annulment of her pain, the second and cruelest death of her husband. Eleanor Vance did not react with hysteria. At 62, panic had been replaced by cold precision. She closed the phone screen with an almost inaudible click and placed it back on the white marble counter as if she had only checked the time. Her walk to Ricardo's office was measured, each step an irrevocable decision. The office, untouched since the funeral, smelled of mothballs and old wood. There was the oak desk, and for the first time she noticed the top drawer was locked. Not with a padlock, but with a small, built-in brass lock. The key. He always kept important documents in the bottom drawer. And there it was, the small silver key, resting on the life insurance policy that had made her a wealthy widow. What she found inside the locked drawer was not passionate love letters, but evidence of blood-chilling complicity. There were stacks of photos. Ricardo and Claire, her only daughter, the fruit of her marriage. Not in fleeting moments of affection, but in moments of intimacy and complicit laughter. Ricardo and Claire embracing in front of the wooden cabin from the profile picture. Ricardo and Claire on a white sand beach, holding a rustic handwritten wooden sign. Our refuge. Away from prying eyes. The dates printed on the photos ranged from 2020 to 2022. 3 years of secrecy, 3 years before the final cancer diagnosis. The betrayal had not only been marital but a silent conspiracy that had isolated her for years. At the bottom of the drawer, next to the photos, was a larger key, for a car or a country house. And a folded piece of paper containing only a sequence of numbers and letters. GPS coordinates. The refuge. Eleanor did not cry. Her face showed no emotion, but her smile, cold and cutting, was the physical manifestation of a destructive epiphany. The pain of grief evaporated, replaced by an unbreakable certainty. Ricardo did not die from cancer. He died of betrayal, just as her trust had. That same night, the widow bought a large, heavy black leather album. A reliquary for her vengeance. The gluing process was not an act of rage, but of accounting. She organized the evidence like a prosecutor, building a dossier against the ghosts that haunted her. On the first page, the undeniable proof, the photo of Ricardo and Claire at the refuge. On the second, the bank statement. A single, substantial transfer. $187,000 to an account in Claire's name. the price of silence, or perhaps the division of the treasure. On the 3rd, her birthday card, Ricardo's last, which he hadn't even bothered to sign. Me. On the 4th, a photo of her, Eleanor, at 45, radiant and exhausted, holding newborn Claire. And below, Eleanor's elegant and firm handwriting, without corrections. You called me perfect mother. But you didn't call me mother. Because I wasn't perfect. I was easy to fool. Easy to steal from. On the 5th page, the wedding invitation for Claire and her fiancé. A lacy, formal paper that now seemed like a cruel joke. On the 6th, the printed email from Claire to a friend, intercepted by Eleanor while cleaning the old family computer. Claire's words were pure venom, a strategic coldness that belied all her daughterly affection. She doesn't understand. She thinks I'm ungrateful. But who is going to help me if she doesn't die soon? That retirement money is mine. She won't use it. And I deserve to live. I deserve what is ours, not hers. On the 7th, she glued the sepia photo of her wedding to Ricardo, 40 years ago, two naive young people. On the 8th page, a blank sheet, left open like a promise of future silence. And the epitome of her resignation. You asked me for a hug when you were hurting. Today I give you total, unbreakable silence. It is your answer. The morning of Claire's wedding dawned cold and gray, the perfect climatic irony. Eleanor wore her best dress, but not as a guest. She drove her old silver sedan to her daughter's house. The door was open due to the rush of final preparations. Eleanor entered, moving with the discretion of a ghost who finally had a mission. She placed the black leather album, her book of truth, in the center of the dining room table, under the cold light of day. A heavy and definitive object. And she left. Without a word, without a look back. Vengeance, she knew, didn't need an audience. It only needed silence to echo. The next morning, the news came indirectly, via Claire's friend. The bride had vanished. She left the altar, the fiancé, and the newly decorated house. She never returned. Eleanor did not search. She did not call the police. She did not cry. She allowed the silence to become her wall. That night, she opened the album one last time. And wrote on the back cover, a conclusion to her project. The most powerful vengeance is not the one that screams with words or demands reparation. It is the one that falls completely silent. And makes the other hear, in the void left behind, the truth they never wanted to face. And she closed the book. It was finished. 6 months passed. Eleanor had returned to routine, with the difference that now she lived her own life, not the echo of Ricardo's life. She started taking painting classes and allowed herself to laugh again. Then Claire appeared at Eleanor's door. It was not the radiant Claire from the refuge photo, but a thinner, darker version. She did not ask for forgiveness. She only handed over an envelope, her eyes cast down. Inside, a check for $187,000. The exact amount that Ricardo had transferred. And a hastily written letter. You did not forgive me, mother. And for that I thank you. But you made me see who I really was. I am no longer the daughter you raised, ignorant in her bubble of comfort. I am the woman you made me be with that deafening silence. Thank you for not saving me. It was the only punishment and the only gift I needed. Eleanor barely read the letter to the end. She left the envelope on the entryway table, an inert object. She went to the garden, sat in her wicker chair, and waited for the silence she had invoked to take effect. Claire was gone again. But Eleanor's life continued. She began receiving letters. From Claire. All without a return address. All unsigned, only with a hesitant C at the end. They were raw words, not about forgiveness but about learning. About what she lost. Time, dignity, family. About what she would never be again. The protected, the naive. Eleanor never replied. But she kept each of the 17 letters in a metal box, along with the key to the refuge she would never visit. A year later, Claire sent the last letter. She was ill. Cancer, the ironic fate that had reached her before Eleanor. Terminal. And she wrote, with the lucidity of departure. I didn't want to die alone, mother. But I also didn't want to die with you because that would be easy. So I chose to die with the silence you taught me. It is my penance. Eleanor did not attend Claire's funeral, but she went to the cemetery a week later at dusk. She brought a single flower, a white daisy, a symbol of the innocence that had died long ago. She placed it beside Ricardo's grave. And she left a note written on tissue paper, tucked into the soil. You betrayed me with your body. She destroyed me with her soul. But you did not kill me. I recreated myself in the silence you left behind. Is the most silent and most victorious vengeance of all. She returned home. The next day she called the bank, executing her final act. She transferred the money from Claire's account, which had been frozen after her disappearance, to a fund supporting children in shelters. Aimless. Without publicity. Without the recognition that Ricardo and Claire had sought. That night, Eleanor sat in the kitchen, with her cup of tea and the album open on her lap. She looked at every documented page of pain, and she smiled. Because she had not only lost a husband and a daughter, she had gained freedom, dignity, the peace that only final detachment can bring. Eleanor Vance had won, without screams, without bloodshed, without forgiveness, just with silence, and the courage to be her own survivor. Eleanor Vance didn't need courts or a weapon. She turned betrayal into art and silence into her most devastating weapon. The revenge in the end didn't scream, it whispered the truth, and made Claire listen. So what was the most devastating blow in this album of truth? The money transfer or the photo of the hideout? Leave your comment and share your opinion on Eleanor's poetic justice. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and justice like this video, subscribe to the Quick Revenge Stories channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Until then, remember, silence always gets the last word.